Art has been a part of Schiphol for years on end. Sometimes obvious, sometimes subtle. These works inspire the millions of travelers who visit our airport every year on their journeys, whether they are arriving or departing. This podcast series, Art Moments Schiphol, introduces you to the stories behind the artworks, guided by the creators themselves. Let's take a look, shall we? In this episode, textile architect Samira Boon talks about her work, 10,800 Horizons.
I grew up countryside. In spring, really beautiful. In winter, quite dull. But the good thing in winter is that you can even have a larger horizon view. So it really gives space to the mind, having such a great and large look. And I think that's still very important for me today, to have space in mind by looking outside.
Ever since the very first plane landed at Schiphol in 1916, people from across the globe have walked its halls. For some, Schiphol is their final destination. For others, merely a stopover. For this passenger in transit, who has no time to leave the airport, Holland Boulevard offers a chance to sample Dutch art and culture. It is home to an incredible textile installation by famed Dutch textile architect Samira Boon. The artwork was created in collaboration with Next Architects. Along the boulevard, separated spaces serve as intimate living rooms. These huiskamers are typical in Dutch homes, and therefore a little nod from the architects. Tucked away in one of these rooms, the traveller looks out onto 10,800 horizons, the textile artwork weaving across the wall. It depicts the Dutch polder landscape, wide and flat.
Hi, I'm Samira Boon. I'm a textile architect. The Holland Boulevard is an area where travelers may even not stay longer than a couple of hours in the Netherlands and still can sense a part of the Netherlands. So from the small living rooms designed by Next Architects, you can overlook the Dutch landscape. This is how we started with the idea that this wall really represents the endless horizons of our very flat Dutch landscape. The wall is 26 meters. The photo we used of Mathieu Verhoeven, we really took that as a starting point. And of course, a photo is a very different medium than textiles. So we thought, like, how also to create a very different experience over these 26 meters. As you can see on the right hand, it's very figurative, and all the yarns are dancing. But they gradually become much more like a horizon on the left hand, where they all end very much as a yarn. The yarn really becomes the horizon. And that is also where the name is derived from.
After finishing up her education as an architect, Boon decided to move to Japan. For 4 years, she was surrounded by the country's incredible design and architecture. And it was there that Boon developed an interest in 3D origami textiles. Origami is the Japanese art of folding paper. She applies the transformative qualities of the ancient form to her designs. Today, she mainly produces site-specific textile works. This usually happens in close collaboration with different architects.
In Japan, a lot of interest is in the making, in the detailing of everything. And they have a huge dedication to the fabrication and the craftsmanship. On the scale of architecture, textile is very interesting to make interiors more flexible, for example. The application of textiles in interiors can make interiors very much more flexible. And that is something I really got to know much more, or I experienced in Japan. The sliding doors in Japanese temples, they constantly redefine space. They make spaces larger or smaller, or they make the relationship between inside and outside differently. That influenced me strongly in how to perceive and how to use space in the projects that we work on.
When you're a passenger in transit, you're often unable to leave the airport. Instead, we've transformed various areas by bringing a little bit of the outside world inside. Like the little nooks right by 10,800 Horizons. They are a place to daydream whilst overlooking the broad landscape woven across the wall. Just make sure you don't miss your flight.
I grew up countryside. In spring, really beautiful. In winter, quite dull. But the good thing in winter is that you can even have a larger horizon view. So it really gives space to the mind, having such a great and large look. And I think that's still very important for me today, to have space in mind by looking outside. Well, I love to sail and to be in the nature, in the lakes in the Netherlands, for example, but also at sea. And also enlarges the horizon.
Boon reminds us here how important space is. Space in your mind to grow, to take rest, and to keep exploring. And for space in nature, physically expanding our horizon. Artworks like this one by Boon make us think about how we use the physical space around us. Where do you see an opportunity for expansion?
Yeah, so overlooking the landscape and the horizon, I experience myself how much space that gives and also a calmness. And also research shows that nature or aspects of nature who refer to nature make people calm. And I think that's also especially in such a busy area as Schiphol, that it is very often added value that they sense. And this landscape, of course, in a very different medium. But also the reference is already important. The origami, which I got to know much more during my 4 years stay in Japan, it is really a mathematical analysis or abstraction of natural processes or natural techniques which you find in nature, or structures which you find in nature. And applying those into textiles became one of the core specialists in the studio. It gives an interesting, but also on a subconscious level, a reference to nature. But it is also an interesting functional added value. And three-dimensional structures three-dimensional textile structures, they have like a very good sound absorption, but they also they fold and unfold not only a beautiful, but also in a very functional way. You really can design spatial structures in a very organized way.
And this is how art meets nature in Boon's work.
I think it's very important that we strive for a circular economy and a circular textile system. I think art can make striking installations together with also the really applied textiles. We should make a change. Of course, in the applied, and that is also why we work in the applied projects as well, there is a mass production and a mass demand. So that is where you can make a really big impact. With textile art, of course, you can also make statements and express. But together with the functional applications, we really should make a big impact.
How can you take something that already exists and make something new? It's an important and challenging mission Boon questions here. Sometimes you have to take a step back to see the bigger picture. Other times, it might be important to come a little closer, to specifically understand how something works. The closer you get to the intertwined yarn of 10,800 horizons, the more details and textures you begin to notice.
It was the workshop in the Netherlands, yes. Well, I think my first experiences during this masterclass were very technical, analytical, but gave a lot of insights how yarns and bindings influence each other. Also the three-dimensionality, which has an interesting acoustic property, was also a feature which I immediately thought, like, this is for architecture really interesting to apply. We originally started with 12 different yarns and different colors. However, we also discovered that it didn't really express the way we wanted to have. So eventually we decided that just only using 4 colors and really putting also a lot of the different structures you can create only with 4 colors are already giving very interesting options. And the way the yarns merge with each other, they also make the colors in between. And what you also can see is that like some yarns are thick and thin. They also make a kind of a dance, I would say, with each other. On the right hand, you also see the way the yarns, they cross each other. They really start to dance because of the tension. Whereas to the left, they really make themselves calm as if they are the horizon.
A 26-meter-long landscape piece that's completely made of textile in a busy and dynamic place like Schiphol Airport. What are the technical requirements of an undertaking like this?
Well, of course, we have to consider very practical aspects as well as such a place. High maintenance, but also most important is the fire retardancy. So that also makes it quite a challenge to select the right yarns. Besides the conceptual phase, we're really research what kind of yarns we can use. Yarns were ordered from Italy. And what is very interesting in the first stages is that you also do a lot of sampling on all the mixtures. How can you structure the textile together with the yarns? What kind of effects does it give? It's a very technical process. And yet it gives a lot of possibilities, of course, for the expression of the final result.
Samira Boon's work explores the transformation of space. Here at Schiphol Airport, even if you're in transit, you're offered a chance to meet the Dutch landscape, all thanks to the splendid 10,800 horizons. Thank you for listening to this episode of Art Moments Schiphol. Are you curious about other artworks at Schiphol? Check out the other podcast episodes in this series. For example, Jantje by Dutch artist Susanne de Graaf. I wish you a pleasant journey.